Welcome back to page 121. If I'm wearing the bowling shirt of destiny, it must be D&D we're going to talk about today. Specifically, we're going to talk about Dragon number 69. This was out in January of 1983. That makes this magazine 40 years old. This is the copy I picked up at the time. Saw a lot of play at our table. This is the issue that, among other things, introduced us to the Thief Acrobat. I picked on that class a couple of weeks ago on an episode. So today, just a walk down memory lane. We're going to page through Dragon 69. Also, just a reminder, everybody, please subscribe if you haven't already. Everybody who has, thank you. I really appreciate the support. I also have a Patreon going right now, so if you've been a patron, thank you guys very much. And if there's anything else, anything that people have been thinking about it and they might want to come over to being patrons, go ahead and click the link below and take a look at it. It'd really help the channel out a great deal. That's all I've got for the commercial. Back to the important stuff. Dragon 69 from January 1983. Today on page 121. Dragon 69 from January 1983. This guy's 40 years old this month. This is during a great time in Dragon where Gary Gygax was dropping all kinds of stuff into what he thought would be D&D second edition and actually ended up becoming Unearthed Arcana. So here we have a great ad for Star Frontiers. This is one of the things that first got me interested in Star Frontiers was ads like this in the Dragon. I had seen it at the store. I hadn't bought it yet, but I would soon. And then we got a nice ad for Rollmaster series. Claw Law, Arms Law. I played under those. Those were time-consuming. I'll just say that. So here we have the table of contents and Kim Mohan with a nice editorial. And then Out on a Limb. Can't see the point. Somebody doesn't understand why you would need the various thieves' cants and things like that. So all these are from letters to the editor. So there we go. And then we come down here on the bottom of page 4, Argonaut Games from Hazlet, Michigan. And we get The Tin Soldier, your source of wide range of tabletop minis, mostly for war games. And it's got me. That's right, the blob will get you. Battle for the Bakery. I don't remember that one. Crypt of the Undead from Epix Computer Games. You can play computer. Your computer to play games. Wow! I did not have a computer at this time. Not even an Atari 800 or 400 800. Wow, the Atari. And some nice artwork there. Nice photo of some runes by Phil Tatarzinski and Roger Raup. I remember reading this article back in '83, and I did use runes, especially when we got the little rune alphabet. I actually set up a couple of encounters where they saw the runes, and I gave them this to translate, and they actually sat there and they translated it into English. That was actually kind of fun. It's a good little article here. Quality sculptors wanted for 25mm fantasy, ancients, medievals, and beasts. And then Game Town, everything adventure games in San Diego, California. So here we go through the rest of the rune article. This is a very long article. Actually, this is the new article on runes by Ed Greenwood. Rune stones, how to use them in your game. And I use rune stones, I still do. Rune stones can hold various powers. It can be something as small as something you can slip in your pocket, or something as big as a marker in a roadway. Runes and rune stones are very useful. And again, we've got a bunch of different rune types. Bequest. Fiction by Antonil Annalyn Noel. I don't remember reading this story. I was never really big on reading the little fiction in there. I read some of them. I don't remember reading this one. And then we got a full-page ad for new releases from Rel Partha, the fantasy leader. I always liked these. I always thought these bugbears looked more like goblins. I think they're supposed to be goblins. I think that's labeled wrong. I always thought that Hellhound looked really good, too. And then Castles by Carol. This is number 2. Waywall Castle. These are real-world castles that you can make up into your fantasy game. Interesting little feature they had for a few issues. The Sorcerer's Scroll. From The Sorcerer's Scroll by Gary Gygax. A split class for nimble characters, the Thief Acrobat. Yeah, I read it. I wasn't too excited about it. I ended up doing it out of Unearthed Arcana. I'm 99% certain I just did it out of Unearthed Arcana. I think I said that in the last video. I did about the Thief class, Thief Acrobat. Not a good class. This was, there were all kinds of problems with this. And the Thieves Guild goes to sea in this ad for Game Lords. Traveler. Nice ad for the Traveler book. This when Traveler was going into the larger size, coming away from the digest size. There was a time of overlap where we had both coming out, where we still did the regular digest size, and then they were going to regular size, like magazine size. The rest of the article on the Thief Acrobat, and then the TSR report. What's going on with TSR, the various things that are happening, and what's going to be forthcoming. These actually almost never bore any relation to reality. I used to read them, and then they were never what Gygax said they were. Everybody Eats Everybody on Sunday's Planet, fiction by Jeff Swykofer. This gentleman wrote a lot of fiction, had a couple of pieces of fiction printed in the Dragon magazine. He did science fiction based on his Traveler campaign. I did a video a few months ago about different non-canon Traveler writers, and Jeff Swykofer is one of them, and this is one of the stories. It's not Traveler, but it feels like Traveler. Deities, Demigods, The World of Greyhawk by Gary Gygax, and I took a look at these guys in a video not too long ago also. So we have Istis with her Time Elemental, Obad High, and we've got a great ad for Space Opera, kind of a Traveler clone, if you will. I'm going to be taking a look at Space Opera before much longer. Charting the Classes, How Do AD&D Characters Compare? This was a good article by Roger Moore. This showed us what you got when you played this class or that class. And it actually did a statistical analysis for your experience points, how much it takes to go up in a level, your hit dice, your eventual hit dice, depending on your 10th, 12th level. This is a very good analysis, the statistical analysis of character classes in AD&D. I always liked this article. I read this one quite a bit. And this also included the Barbarian, since at that time it was a new official class. Now we come to Featured Creatures by Gary Gygax. It's one thing that I've noticed coming back and looking at these for the first time in a long time is that a lot of the issues were just Gary Gygax. I don't know if they didn't want to pay somebody else or if they just weren't getting good submissions at the time. Keep in mind, in these days, you had to write your manuscript and mail it off. So here we have the Ustaligor, which is kind of a fungi, looks like a brain, and Zygom. Gygax liked his fungi. Catalyst, Game Master's Aids for all role-playing systems. These are the various Grimtooth's traps. I never owned Grimtooth's traps. I paged through it a couple of times at the store, and one of my buddies had it, so I read some of the stuff. It was interesting, but I was never one to have these massive traps that would stop the game. I put in plenty of traps, of course, and once in a while I'd put in a Lulu, but not real often. So here we have Caped Crusaders and Masked Marvels by Roger E. Moore. Because I was pretty new into Champions at the time of this, I read this article closely, and it was pretty good. I'm a long-time comic fan. I'd been a comic fan for over 10 years by the time I read this article, but it had some good insights. Villains and Vigilantes. I played that back in 80. It was on the very first release of Villains and Vigilantes. I think that was released in 79. It was a good system. Once I found Champions, I never went back to V&V. This from Fantasy Games Unlimited. Same folks that brought us Space Opera. Start your voyage today. You can become a hero of Olympus with Task Force Games. The New Wave, a Tactics from Hobby Game Distributors. These look like book games, bookshelf games that used to be Avalon Hill and them used to publish. Cast Your Own Fantasy Figures, the Duncan Company. New, The Artists of TSR, the RPGA's network's first art portfolio. So you could send away for that and get all the artwork. And then we have Arakar's Wand. And this is an adventure. This is actually a game. It's a game for 2 players. It's a fantasy board game designed by C.C. Stahl. I never played it. I read through it back in the day. I haven't read it since then. Some of these were interesting, but they would have required me to cut up my dragon or buy a second copy, neither of which was a favorable alternative for me. So I usually didn't end up playing the games out of Dragon. And all kinds of stuff about the wand itself. And then we have an ad for Gravball from FASA, when FASA was coming away from being a Traveler licensee. They were doing their own game called Gravball. And then we have hobby game distributors. And these are various dealers that were around the country at the time. And this was about the only way you had to find people other than going to your current phone book and looking them up. Here we have Games Plus, where we held Jump Point not too long ago, an outstanding hobby store that's still there. The Hobby Chest was a nice hobby store up in Skokie, Illinois. I was in there a few times. Pat's Hobby and Craft Incorporated. I've mentioned Pat's many times on my channel. He was in Oak Lawn. That was a nice hobby store in the 80s. They brought in a lot of stuff, very accommodating to players, and just a good place to go. Unfortunately, it's long gone now. It's law offices now. Pat's closed probably 10 or 15 years ago. And now we go to Lehman's Tiny Hut. Let them entertain you. So here we have the various entertainer character class group. So you could become a juggler, acrobat, or troubadour. This is by Len Lakofka. Interesting. We looked at it, I know, but we didn't end up using it. And then Grenadier Models new for 1983. Grenadier Models, Call of Cthulhu, Fantasy Lords, etc. Does your Vorpal blade go snicker-snack, or does it just snicker? Bandersnatch leathers for a dice pouch you can afford. Hobby House, free lead figure with purchase of catalog. Send $1. That's a little halfling archer. I've got that guy. So some more of the entertainer. I always like that picture. The guy making the acrobatic mishap. Bushido. Now you can serve as a samurai honoring your lord. Again, from Fantasy Games Unlimited. They put out quite a few games in the early 80s. Ready for anything. Be prepared to carry more than just a sword. This is a good article. Louis Pulsifer, he gives you some tips on what you need to have on your mule or on your back to successfully adventure. So I use this quite a bit. My introduction to caltrops, other than Shogun, that was the first time I remember seeing caltrops. Fantasia, an exciting new game from an exciting new company. These guys were Viking Games in Charlotte, North Carolina. More Pages from the Mages, the latest words of wisdom for Elminster the Sage by Ed Greenwood. Some early glimpses at Forgotten Realms. There were quite a few in Dragon Magazine, and then when Gygax left the company, of course, TSR changed the default world from Greyhawk to Forgotten Realms. So kind of interesting. We actually knew Ed Greenwood. I knew him for a couple of years before that happened because I'd been reading pages from the Mages. Ed writes a good little article here. And the various spell books. Use this a lot. I used one of these as a MacGuffin in one of my games. And then we always got new spells, which I like too. Use some magic. Dragon Bone, electronic. Wow, an electronic way to roll dice. Wow. You got to keep in mind, this is 40 years ago. We didn't have phones in our pockets. Dragon Tree Press. Because fantasy should be more than fighting and magic is never mechanical. From Dragon Tree Press. Lots of different companies popped up during these days. And the convention schedule, forthcoming conventions. It's kind of neat. I wonder if any of these are still around. And there's more where this came from. You could subscribe to Dragon Magazine. A few words of wisdom about weapon statistics from Top Secret. I played some Top Secret. That was a fun game. I did a video on Top Secret not terribly long ago. 1/3 off of various games from Gamers Guild. And then the Wizard's Corner, Saskatoon's FRP Game Center in Saskatchewan, Canada. We're no longer simply amazing science fiction. They've got a whole new look. This is right about the time that TSR took over Amazing and was trying to make go of that as another magazine that they were publishing. World's Up for Grabs in the United Nations, one of the newest releases from Yaquinto Press Publications. Fun is in the Cards with Jasmine. Never played either one of these. Sanctuary, Thieves World board game. I saw this. I never played it. Daredevils, Have Adventures 2. This from Fantasy Games Unlimited. Dare to Win, Be a Merc from Fantasy Games Unlimited. And Siege Equipment from RAFM Miniatures. I always wanted that Siege Ladder. I always thought that was really neat. Catapults now, I've got a couple, but I always wanted that Siege Ladder. And Game Grid Sheets, the original and the largest. So you could map your stuff out by buying their sheets. Change of Pace Adventure Venues for, in this, The Roll of Books, this by Louis Pulsifer. It's a review of life in a medieval city. How to use these books and not spend a fortune, which is a nice article too, because again, you had to buy the book unless your local library happened to have it. Not as common in the early 80s as it is now. Game Master Hobbies Incorporated. These guys were out of San Francisco, California. Darkling Ship from Judges Guild. I like this adventure. This is a really good traveler adventure. And then we get a look at a couple more book reviews. We have the standard for fantasy roleplay game masters. The Companions, Bath, Maine. Remember the hero from Champions? Now he has a friend with a gun. Espionage, the secret agent role-playing game. Never played Espionage. The only hero game I played a little Gamma, their Gamma World. I forget the name off the top of my head. Their post-apocalyptic game. Played a little bit of that, and did a little Pulp Adventures when they had 5th edition. Here we have the continuation of Out on the Limb. And then Illusionist Ideas. So these are just more letters to the editor, finishing up. New Fantasy Orcs, New Fantasy Tribe Orcs from Citadel Miniatures. Cosmic Encounter, science fiction gaming at its best from Eon Products. And then we have a correction here from the advertising department. Whoops. Rubber Stamp Magic, and the winner was a tie. You get to name the wizard. Discount Games and Computer Software from Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Silver Dawn by Entertainment Concepts. Another game you can play. Now TSR Hobbies offers you the best of both worlds, strategy and tactics, and Ares Magazine. TSR was very serious in the early to mid 80s about becoming a larger publisher. They really wanted to be able to put their imprint on things. So to that end, we had strategy and tactics and Ares. And then we have What's New with Phil and Dixie. Kind of like What's New. I always liked What's New. Those are fun. And of course, Wormy by Dave Trampier. I always like the Dave Trampier art in this. That's a nice splash page. And then we get a couple of different out-of-print games by TSR, distributed by the Armory. So just an ad for the different games, including Snit's Revenge. Asgard Miniatures, available at the Armory in Baltimore, Maryland, and available from the fine hobby and game stores. So we've got a bonus list in here of different hobby and game stores that were around that were distributing this product. Games Plus makes the list again. Pat's Hobbies did not make this list. Westmont, Lyle's Hobby and Craft, which I think is still there. I was there several times. They made the list. Westmont's not terribly far from my house. The Finest in Gaming Accessories from the Armory. Hex and graph paper. A 30-sided die. I've got a couple of those lying around. I've never really found a use for them, but hey, they're a thing. I know they have up to like 120-sided die now. The Armory's 30-sided die. And Star Trek, the role-playing game. To boldly go where no man has gone before. Star Trek was really, really popular in early 83 because of Wrath of Khan, the second Star Trek movie. I played the Star Trek role-playing game a couple of times. It was a fun game. This was also by FASA. And there we have the back ad for Middle-earth Role-Playing System, or MERPS, by Iron Crown Enterprises. So there we have it. That's a nice look at issue 69 from January 1983. This is the actual magazine I bought off the stands 40 years ago. Let me know your thoughts. I really enjoy taking a look at these dragons. I'm going to keep doing them as long as people keep watching. So let me know if there's any other thing you would, any other suggestion for videos or anything like that. But that's all I've got for today on page 121. I want to thank you for your time, and I'll see you next time.